Welcome back to Cosmic Kickback, the galaxy's favorite talk show. As always, I am your host, Nick, joined by my co-host, Joshua.
Winter is coming.
Yes, it's very true. Winter is coming here in Texas, but it's also the theme of this episode. So we have done series reviews in the past. We've reviewed a lot of series, and it's about time that we have reviewed Game of Thrones. We are going to be doing an episode for each season of Game of Thrones. There are 8 seasons to get through, and we are building up to talk about the last season because recently Josh and I both finished Game of Thrones in its entirety. I binged the entire series with my girlfriend last year. I thought it was great. I'd never seen it before. I saw some mild spoilers, so some stuff was kind of like ruined for me, but I still enjoyed the series as a whole, and I want to talk about it. And Josh, you said you watched the show as it came out, right?
Some of the seasons I did. I haven't watched it since when the first season came out. I believe it was 2011, 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Somewhere around then. I was 12 years old when that came out, so I was way too young to be watching it.
Yeah, honestly, for the subject matter.
Yeah, so I don't think I began watching it until I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
So I think I was was it a junior or sophomore? I was just in time for season 6, I believe. So the season where this is all full spoilers for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so full spoilers
for everything. This will be mainly season 1 because this is the first episode.
Yes.
But I'm about to reference a spoiler for season 6 or 5. But when Jon Snow was killed, and then he comes back.
Yes.
That's like right when I got caught up.
Okay.
So the last episode was when he's dead, and it's like, damn, what the fuck? So I had to wait like a month or two to figure out what happens.
Yeah.
I didn't have to wait a full year like some people did.
Yeah, I heard they waited over like a year or two for something crazy like that.
Because they used to drop these pretty much like every year there was a new season. And then the last 2, I think, maybe the last 1 or the last 2 took 2 years in between.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why it took so long because the end product we got ended up being shit. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
In that episode.
This is mainly going to be season 1. Maybe we'll reference stuff outside of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. But
if you're watching the show, watching us review Game of Thrones, then I've assumed you've already seen it. If you haven't, I would stop right now and go watch the show. I think I'm gonna say right now it is a good show. I think it was worth watching it. The end, I can say it did leave some stuff to be desired, but we're
gonna shit on it when it gets to it.
Yeah, we're gonna shit on it.
The beginning seasons are very well done.
Critiques are coming.
I will say that. If you are listening, just right off the bat, thank you for joining us. We're excited to drop into this. If you're on YouTube, you've already seen I'm in full Lord of the Night's Watch attire.
Yes.
Nick's dressed in his...
I'm a squire.
If you're listening, you don't know, but I'm wearing the full-on black cloak that Jon Snow wears from Lord of the Night's Watch and all that, Lord Commander. We're getting into this, so I just want to throw that out there. Also, leave a like. Let's throw it out there right there. If you guys are watching this, just take a second, just click the button. Thank you. Now let's just jump right into it.
Jump right into Game of Thrones season 1. Yeah. So this is a fantasy series. You said it dropped 2012, I believe. Let me double.
It was 11 or 12. It was early past decade.
Yeah, and it premiered on HBO Max.
Back then it was only HBO.
Yeah, so this is before it was a streaming service. That's crazy. It was just HBO, and that was a channel that you could tune into back in the old days on the television.
In the old days.
On the old cable box.
I think around that time they did launch a streaming app, but it was just HBO. So their streaming, it was like
HBO Now.
It was called HBO Now or HBO Go or something, and all you could do was just watch HBO stuff. So like HBO has some good stuff. I will give them that. You know, Westworld is good. Euphoria is doing numbers right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually just dropped.
There's recently a show called Gunpowder, I believe, which I've heard decent things about. They have some decent things on there. Yes. I think also that one show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think that's HBO. They have a lot of stuff out there. So, but now HBO Max, they have their own stuff, but now they also got stuff from Cartoon Network.
They've got DC. They've got DC Animated.
From classic movies. They have a whole bunch of catalog.
Yeah, their catalog has gotten insane.
In my opinion, it's like it rivals Netflix.
I think it's better than Netflix.
I think it might be as well.
So, to get specific, season 1 of Game of Thrones, it premiered on HBO April 17th, 2011, and then the first season concluded on June 19th of the same year.
So it launched the careers of a lot of people as well, like Kit Harington, of course. Sansa Stark, played by what's her name?
Maddie.
I
don't know. let me look up the cast right quick.
We got Arya Stark, of course. We got Robb Stark. We got Rickon. We got
Macy
Bran.
Williams.
Macy Williams played
Peter
Arya.
Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage, of course, is great. I think I already knew who he was before this came out.
Elf.
He was an elf. He was in some other things.
It's funny seeing him because, like, in that movie, he's just he's
Sophie Turner is
Sophie
Sansa.
Turner.
And it's launched their careers a lot of them. They all look extremely young.
Yeah, looking at it now after season 8 and honestly, like, past season 5, everyone looks so young and everyone looks so different. But, you know, the show spanned over almost 9 years because it wrapped up in 2019. Yeah. So it was about a year for each season.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which, you know, is kind of the standard for making a show. But let's get right into the story. So these are based off of books from author George R.R. Martin. He wrote a series of Game of Thrones, and it's called is it The Song of Ice and Fire or The Dance of Ice and Fire?
It's called A Song of Ice and Fire.
Song of Ice and Fire. And along with George R.R. Martin and his books, he also collaborated with David Benioff.
Oh, so these are the D.B. Wise and all that.
Yeah, and then D.B. Wise and a couple other writers. But the program creators of the actual show, people just call them D&D because both of their names start with D. So if we ever say D&D, we don't mean Dungeons and Dragons, but we're referring to the writers of the show.
Yeah, so the writers of the show, I think we'll talk more about their skills later on. But
yes,
I think right now I think it's evident watching the early seasons of the show, and honestly, most of the show leading up until maybe the last 2 seasons, they are very good at translating a book to screen.
Yeah, sometimes that's hard.
Yeah, and I think that's where they excel because getting the material that they had to work with. I think they picked and choose because obviously there's shit in this huge book that's not going to be in the show. It's not going to make the final cut.
Yeah, because some stuff is just like it's too crazy.
Exactly. But I think they did a great job picking out what they're going to use like from the main plot, and I think the first episode is done very well to hook people right away because it starts off, you're introduced, it's kind of like, okay, this is fantasy. What's going to get me to stay? And then I think if I remember correctly, the first big reveal is at the very end of the final episode.
Yes.
Bran is climbing a tower and he comes and finds the Queen Cersei,
Queen of Westeros.
Yeah, the queen of the whole Western Island, from King's Landing. They have traveled north to greet the Starks. She is getting conjugal with her brother.
She's getting doggy style.
Yeah, just right there, and the kid sees it. Jaime catches him before he can go and say something.
Yeah,
and he pushes him from the top of the tower, expecting to kill him. So people would assume like, oh, he just fell while climbing.
Yep. So I guess to kind of paint the picture, that is a very good cliffhanger, by the way.
Yeah, that's why it's from that point on I was hooked.
Yeah, that also hooked me in because I watched the first episode, and starting off, so we start in the land of Westeros. There's a bunch of different kingdoms and families. It follows these different houses, and we're introduced to the Starks. They reside in Winterfell, which is in the north. We have Ned Stark, we have Catelyn Stark. They're the mother and father. We have all their kids, Arya, Sansa. They're the 2 sisters, the daughters. And then from oldest to youngest son, we have Robb Stark. We have Jon Snow, who is a bastard child, hence his name. And then Bran and Rickon Stark.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the whole Stark family. And
I think it's actually, I don't know the history, I haven't researched it, but I like how if you're a bastard child, which pretty much just means you're
an illegitimate child.
It's like, well, back then the whole thing was about bloodlines and keeping, you're not incest is still weird. I think at a time incest was the norm back in the day because you wanted to keep the bloodline pure and in the family, so that was normal back then. But at this point, it's not. Incest is frowned upon in this in this universe, like it is in real life.
In this universe,
yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant this. Like,
no,
I get what you mean.
I mean, no, but I'm saying that because there's a lot of incest.
Yeah, there is a lot of incest. There's a lot of floppy wieners and a lot of boobies in this show, and it's no surprise because George R.R. Martin just wrote it this way. And it's a fantasy novel. They didn't have phones, they didn't have computers back then. what were they supposed to do? I'm not saying fuck your brother or sister for your pastime, but there's gonna be a lot of stuff like that.
I like how Jon Snow, his last name is Snow because he's born up north.
Yes.
If you're based on where you're born, if you're a bastard, that's how they determine your last name, because they won't give you the name of your father or mother since you were not born the legitimate way through marriage or whatever.
Yes.
Since you're born that way, you get a last name. So Winter is Snow. I believe the Dornish area, which we don't even get introduced till like season 3 or 4.
Yes.
I think their last name is Sand.
You are correct. I have them pulled up here, actually.
What are the other ones?
If you're born in the Vale, which I think is east, your last name is Stone. If you're born in the Crown Lands, it's Waters.
Yeah.
The Iron Islands, it's Pike. And so on. Riverlands, River. Like it's not it's not a lot of creativity behind the bastard names. They just give it to you.
You just get that thing.
Yeah, they just get it. But
I think this season is potentially one of my favorite seasons.
Yes. I agree with you.
I will say there's a lot of nudity in this one. I think the nudity starts off high.
Yeah, I think it gets toned down in the later seasons because it's more about the plot, like literally the plot.
I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know. It feels like they made the conscious decision in the early days to be like, let's just show hella titties.
Yeah.
So people can get in on this.
We need people to be hooked.
I mean, I think that's what they probably did. If I'm being honest.
Yeah. That's
probably what they did because there's a lot of nudity. A lot of it probably isn't even plot based. If we're gonna be honest with it, they kind of just do it to do it.
Yeah. There's a whole part, and it's not even season 1. Maybe it might be season 1, but they go to King's Landing, and they have like a whorehouse that is literally used like multiple times because like a character like operates in there.
The
and
whorehouse is everywhere.
It's
like,
a place. It's a place. The brothel is what they call it.
Yeah.
But it's a place where multiple people will meet, and conspire, and just talk, and there'll just be naked girls in the background for no reason. I don't know why.
Well, we get introduced to one of the main characters of the show later on called named Daenerys Targaryen.
Yes.
And our first time meeting her, she's immediately stripped nude by her own brother.
Oh, yeah. What's his name? Viserys?
Viserion or something like that.
Viserys.
Viserys, something like that.
Yeah.
He immediately says, let me look at you. Because I think he's planning on selling his sister to a Dothraki warlord.
Yeah.
So they can get... Because, okay, so they're on another continent. The Targaryens used to rule Westeros, and they have all since been wiped out. I think his sister and him, Viserys... They are the last of the Targaryens.
Yes.
And since he's the guy, he wants to be king. He believes it's in his right since it's been taken from them. So they're planning on his plan is to sell his sister, get this Dothraki to obey him.
Yes.
And sell back to Westeros to reclaim the Iron Throne.
Yes.
And immediately this guy just is a creep checking out his sister. I think he literally caresses her boob.
Yeah.
It's very off-putting.
It's very strange.
It's very strange. And it leads into, which I think was one of my favorite characters for a while. I really like Daenerys Targaryen.
Okay. Yeah, let's focus on we'll jump around characters and plot, but focusing on Daenerys. What do you like about her?
I think, from the beginning, it's interesting because this came out back in 2011 or 12. Mm-hmm. So back then... For this to come out, they were already, I think, and actually the books even came out sooner. So the books were dropped in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like the first...
So this is a long time
The first
coming.
one was dropped in the 90s. So to just think about that, and we don't know how George R.R. Martin wants it to end because he hasn't even dropped his final book or 2 yet.
Still waiting on the project.
Yeah, we don't even know how it's officially ending
I would honestly rather read the book.
I probably will whenever it comes out. But anyway, I like her because I think it's evident from the start that starts off in a very low place and she kind of rises and gains followers, but she's doing it in a different way that anyone else in Westeros is doing it. She's on another continent. She's literally having to rise from nothing and reclaim power that her family used to have, but she's not doing it by a way of dictatorship or something like that.
Or
she's
force
doing it,
or fear.
Yeah, she's doing it in a way of freeing people from slavery pretty much, and the people that fight for her choose to fight for her, and that doesn't really happen too much in season 1. We see that progress throughout the seasons.
Yes.
Season 1 is more so her
And her relationship
with her brother.
Her brother, and then also her soon-to-be husband, Khal Drogo, who's played by
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa. I wish his character was in the show longer.
Yeah, he's only really in it in the first season.
It is the first season.
Yeah.
I think if he got to Westeros, man, he would have fucking killed, bro. He would have been so.
That would have been
the
really
whole
cool
thing
to
is
see.
like the Khals are like scared of the ocean. They think it's like
they're
this
very. They're kind of like, I would say, their depiction is that of similar to, like, I guess, Native Americans.
Yeah,
like
they stay on the land. They grew.
They grew on the land. They ride because like back then, the civilized man, like, they could ride horses, but they couldn't ride while shooting an arrow and attacking on them.
Yeah.
So they're very good at doing that. They're very wild. But they also have very spiritualistic beliefs. So because of that, I believe they are afraid of the ocean because they think it's like some alive monster or something.
Yeah, like it's a moving thing.
Yeah. But he is conquering those fears because he says he will sail her over even despite that.
Yeah.
To like help her fight for her throne. So that's what the plan is, but we never get to see that.
Yeah, we don't. I feel like that's
I'm
obviously
okay with
for the
it.
advancement of the plot. George R. R. Martin loves to throw curveballs. That's going to happen a lot during the show, and we'll talk about it in the finale of this season. But I think what ends up happening is
there's a lot.
Daenerys sees that when the what is the name of the group? It's not the Khals, but the group that Khal Drogo leads.
The Dothraki?
The Dothraki, that's right. When the Dothraki, they pretty much their whole thing is like they take villages, they rape and pillage, and Daenerys doesn't like seeing this, and now that she's calls like kind of the Khaleesi is what they call her. Yeah. She tells one of the soldiers to stop. She's like, look, this is no way like you're supposed to do it. Like you shouldn't just rape and like pillage people, like taking over, their shit like this. And the soldier, of course, like stops, trying to put himself onto this girl, and later he has a problem with it that he stands up to call, and I think they tussle for a bit.
Yeah.
He rips his fucking throat out. Which I thought was pretty
he rips
badass.
His tongue out from his throat.
Yeah, like literally a fucking Mortal Kombat type shit.
Yeah.
Khal Drogo is a literal Mortal Kombat dude. But he gets cut, and I
guess the blade was poisoned.
Yeah, eventually his wound gets infected, and Daenerys tries to get this village woman who is like a blood sorcerer.
Like a witch.
She's a witch, yeah. There's a lot of mystical shit in the later seasons, but this is like the first piece we get. She says that she can heal Khal Drogo. And also, by the way, Daenerys is supposedly pregnant.
Yeah.
Khal Drogo impregnates her. And it's cool because you see their relationship grow. At first, she's kind of like adamant to be with him, but they kind of fall in love. And she calls him
it is very interesting.
She calls him like my moon and my stars. They start having like little cute nicknames. But long story short, what happens is her baby is stillborn, and Khal Drogo eventually becomes like a vegetable.
He's like brain dead.
He's
like,
brain
so he's
dead.
Still alive, but he's just not really there.
Yeah, which sucks. And it makes sense because, the medical... Really back then, if someone loses a limb, like they're just like, yeah, you're fucked. Like it's... they really don't got a lot going on in the medical field. But she loses her potential baby and Khal Drogo. And Daenerys, they hold a funeral for Khal, and Daenerys also got gifted these dragon eggs when she became Khaleesi, and she puts them in the fire, and they burn Khal Drogo's body. And in front of everyone, she walks into the flames, and once they die down, and this is pretty much, I think, where the season finale is for season 1.
I believe this is literally how it ends.
Yeah, the last shot is literally Daenerys rising out of the flames because the Targaryens have always had a thing with dragons and fire. I guess she's fireproof.
Yeah, she doesn't get scathed at all. Really.
Yeah, she emerges from the flames unscathed, and she has 3 baby dragons kind of born.
The dragons have hatched, and she's like their mother.
Yeah, which is pretty cool because she lost her baby and her husband, but she's gained.
I think it's cool how. I feel like for the most part, the first season is probably its most grounded, and it stays grounded, but eventually it does kind of go all out crazy with the mystical shit. I actually we'll get more into that when we get to those seasons, but I kind of wish they went more into some of the weird stuff.
Yeah.
But in this first season, the only weird mystical stuff we kind of see, if I remember correctly, is the first opening scene where we see like zombies, but they're called White Walkers.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much like north of the wall. So at the top of Westeros, there's a big block of ice that separates them from the wildlings, which are like, I guess, people that live off of the land. And the civilized people deem them too wild to live amongst them, so they keep them out with this wall. And it's very, very cold there. That's people are sent there pretty much to just live out their life there.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there.
No.
And up north as well, there's some mystical shit going on with some White Walker zombies that are coming down to attack. And we were literally teased that from episode 1. So that's one mystical thing. And then the next thing I think is probably the dragons. Because we've heard stories, I think it's mentioned in passing, how back in the day the Targaryens ruled, they actually had dragons. Like they would ride them, and like that's why they were in power pretty much. But now all the dragons have been killed. All the Targaryens have been killed, and the only surviving
their castle
two,
is like fucked up.
Yeah. The only two that are surviving, we already talked about them. They're gone. But now she has brought dragons back somehow with, I guess, a mixture of like the magic and like the horse called Drogo dying and then her baby dying.
The horse.
Oh, yeah, remember there's
they kill a horse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of horses getting
There's a lot of weird
shit
going
season.
on here.
If you like animals, don't watch this show.
Yeah. And the main guy, I think, this is why I love season 1. It follows Ned Stark, I'd say, for like 90% of the plot.
Yeah, I like that too because the actor who plays him, do you know his name by chance?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I know he's in Lord of the Rings.
He is in Lord of the Rings.
Ned Stark is the father of the Starks, and he's forced to go down to help Robert Baratheon, the king, who's also like his best friend from like back in the day. He's forced to go down and be his king's hand, which is like hand of the king, like second in command kind of thing. Helps him make decisions. So
Sean Bean, that's who it is.
John Bean?
Sean Bean.
Sean Bean, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's great, and I think what I love about this is Ned Stark is like he's purposely written as like the stereotypical like hero that most mythological like Lord of the Rings like fantasy type stories, King Arthur type stuff. They all have this protagonist that's kind of like the most noble person. They make all the best decisions. They're what you would want to be. They're an honest man.
Yeah.
And they end up saving the day and living happily ever after. And I think George R.R. Martin purposely, and he writes him like that, but then everybody's in shock when it first happens because they kill Ned Stark off at the end of the season.
Yes.
After we follow him as our main protagonist, I think everybody had no idea that this was happening, and from that point on, had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Game of Thrones does best.
Yeah, it always throws curveballs, and that caught me off guard too because I really like Ned Stark. I really like the actor Sean Bean from Lord of the Rings, and it's something you don't expect because you'd expect like a nobleman in a fantasy setting like this to kind of find a way out of situations like this, but I think it's the environment and the people around him where it's like he tried his best to be truthful and honorable.
I mean,
but
he really makes
no
wrong decision.
Yeah,
he makes the most honorable decision I think in every circumstance.
Yeah, and that's what kind of gets him killed in the end.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which sucks. So getting more into the plot, we can just brush over this because I just want to talk more about how good this season is.
Yeah.
Ned, he goes to King's Landing, which is where Robert lives, to marry off Sansa to Joffrey, which is Robert's son, air quotation marks. And then Jon, his bastard son, he wants to know his true heritage, but we don't know that yet. And Ned, actually, I think he refuses to tell him, or he keeps that secret from him.
I think Ned teases it. So we're teased off first episode that Jon Snow may not be who he really is or who he's told he is.
Yes.
It's not really done. Not much is done with that until later on, like late season 5 or 6, I believe. But I think what is said is Jon is going to the Night's Watch, so the wall at the top of Westeros, which we spoke of, because they send bastards there, they send criminals there, they pretty much send people that don't want to go to jail, like to live off their life there.
Yeah, it's like a life sentence.
Yeah, and I think he's purposely choosing to go there, if I remember correctly. Like I think he's saying, I don't think he's being forced as a bastard to go there. I think he's saying he wants to do it to like prove himself or something like that.
Make his family proud or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and like prove that he's more than just a bastard.
Yeah.
But Ned Stark has always raised him not as a bastard. Like bastards all over this show are treated terribly, like not like a real a real child, like a real offspring.
Yeah.
They're treated like less than human almost.
They're looked down upon.
Yeah, and Ned Stark always raised him still as his son. His family's always considered him still part of the family. In fact, Arya and him are extremely close. Like they have a very like sibling like love relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, he gives her a sword, right?
Yeah.
He gives her a sword.
He gives her Needle before
Yeah,
he
it's called
leaves.
Needle. Before he goes off to the wall.
Yeah.
He gives
But that's when
he gives
Ned,
Arya a sword.
Yeah, the sword's actually she keeps it the whole series.
Yeah, she does.
But
And
that's when Ned mentions he says so I don't remember, I haven't seen it in a while, but he says something along the lines of like next time I see you, like we'll talk about your where you come from, or like something like that, like your heritage or something.
So it's not like Ned was like being a bad father, because it sounds like he's been a good father the whole time. I think he was just holding off before he took care of this business, and he eventually was going to tell Jon.
Yeah,
but that never happened.
Because originally, if everything went to plan.
Yeah, I mean nothing goes to plan in this show, bro.
If it would have gone to plan, he would have just gone down the King's Landing, helped out Robert for a bit,
married
them off. Then he comes back north, and then eventually Jon comes back, and they meet up again. Then he tells him.
Yes.
Which I don't know how. I wonder what Ned's plan was. We can maybe talk about that later on when we get to that reveal, because that's a later season reveal.
Yeah.
We'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah.
Okay. What else happens?
So while Ned is at King's Landing, he is talking to Robert, and I think what happens is Robert goes on a
hunt.
Yeah, he goes on a hunt. And Robert and him are like best friends. Like they literally talk like they talk like Josh and I. They're just like, oh, fuck you. Like they bust each other's balls, and like they're very. You can tell how close they are. Like in the conversation and the dialogue that they have. And Ned has been his king's hand for some time, and I think what Robert does is he goes on a hunt, and a lot of people. You can tell like he's super jolly, and I always felt like he was drunk like half the time he was on screen. Like he was always just drunk. And he goes on a hunt, and he's like, Ned, like, look, there's a bunch of bullshit going on. Like, I think what happens is Kat takes Tyrion. Remember, she meets Tyrion at an inn, and she takes one of the Lannisters, Tyrion Lannister, prisoner because she thinks that Tyrion had something to do with Bran paralyzing his legs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And so she takes Tyrion, and Catelyn goes to the Vale, which is where her sister is. Her maiden name is Erin, so that's where she goes to. And Robert's like, yeah, like fuck all this shit. Like why is your wife taking like one of the Lannisters hostage? Like I'm gonna go on a hunt. Like you just figure this shit out. And it's kind of shitty. Like you just left him like up and left him all dry like that. And so Ned, he's kind of running the kingdom for a bit, and he's trying to investigate the mysterious death of the last hand of the king, which was Jon Arryn, which is his brother-in-law and his sister's actual brother. And as he's investigating this, he's looking through the history of all the Baratheons and like the past crown, I guess you could say. Yeah. And he finds a discrepancy, which is pretty obvious to a viewer. But Joffrey, so Robert has 3 children with Cersei. He has Joffrey, who's the oldest. Then it's Tommen, and then is it Eliza?
Girl.
What's her name?
I forget.
Marina.
He
has a daughter. It's one daughter, you know. But he pretty much realizes that every person that Robert has had, every child he's had, and his father and father before had black hair. And pretty much he's like, you know what? I think I'm suspecting that Cersei is having like incest children. Like their hair color is different.
It's blonde. And her brother Jaime. The audience already knows this.
Yeah, I know. You can put it together. I mean, you saw them fucking.
Yeah, so exactly.
There's some stuff you see that characters don't see.
Yeah,
so
and Ned goes and for some reason he straight up tells Cersei that he knows.
Yeah, he's like, I know that you've been sleeping with your brother.
Yeah.
And I will say that is probably a very stupid thing he did, because it's called the Game of Thrones. And I didn't realize this until like Sansa was in the later season, that whole fucked up situation. But it is a Game of Thrones. You kind of have to play your cards right, and certain pieces of information can be used to your advantage, or they can be used against you. And I think Ned, being the honorable man he was, he just wanted to confront her about the truth. And
I mean, Ned does everything kind of the way that everybody should conduct life, but everyone else isn't doing that. They're keeping stuff to themselves. They're using stuff for their advantage. It's all for power, a play of power.
Mm-hmm.
And Ned ends up getting screwed because of that.
Yeah, I think he meets Peter Baelish, who's an important character. He's
Yeah.
kind of like advisor on the council. So Ned sits in on one of the meetings, and he's talking about who should be like the next, I guess, the heir to the throne, because Robert comes back for his hunting trip. He gets a fucking nasty gash in his leg.
And he's going to die.
Yeah, and he knows that he's going to die. And so he's like, look, you should find someone to be the heir to the throne.
What he actually writes is he says he wants Ned to be king until his son becomes of age.
Yes, because Joffrey, I think, is like 15 or 14 maybe.
Yeah.
He acts way younger.
But even then, he didn't even get to tell Robert about Joffrey being not even his child. And that technically all of them are technically bastards of incest.
Yes.
So none of them should have heir to the throne. So Ned, technically, with that knowledge, he could have just become king himself, and like he wouldn't even ever have to give it up, because they're all incest. So then who would get it if Robert wants him to be it?
Yeah, because you can just choose who wants to be it.
So he pretty much gets written in hand by the king himself that he wants him to be the king. Yes. And then he also has information to prove that Joffrey is a product of incest, so he's not eligible for the crown.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even
eligible. My bad, boy.
He's not even the king's son. So
yeah,
there's a lot of information, and you're really rooting for Ned to get this done.
Yeah, it's cool.
You want to see Ned be on the throne. We actually get to see him sit on the throne.
Yeah, he sits on the throne for a couple of things. He helps people with little trivial things around the kingdom, which is cool for a bit, but he makes the mistake of trusting Peter Baelish, who is a big snake throughout the show.
Oh, my God.
Peter, I think, hears this information from Ned. He tells him, like, look, I know all this shit. Like, I'm going to take the throne. It's like, I know Joffrey will probably try to defy me because he wants to be the heir. It's like, do you got my back? And Peter's like, yep.
I got you.
He goes to the throne room. He does it. And Peter, he didn't keep his word. I think he actually holds a knife to his throat.
He pulls a knife to him and says, I told you not to trust me.
Yeah, that dude Peter, bro.
And I think from that point on, Ned's just held in a dungeon.
Yeah,
until
he's held
execution.
in captivity while his daughters are still kind of around King's Landing. I think Sansa is spending a lot of her time with Joffrey because she's meant to be married off.
She used to be. Didn't she used to like them?
What do you mean?
Did she like Joffrey ever, or did she always not like him?
I think she liked him for a bit when they first met, but then that whole situation happened where her direwolf bit Joffrey. Remember? Because she was gonna attack. Joffrey was gonna attack Arya.
They had it killed.
Yeah, and then Ned had to kill one of the direwolves. Also, we didn't mention this, but they have there's some direwolf puppies found. Yeah, they find puppies, and Ned's like, you know what? Like, yeah, just y'all raise this shit yourself. And the reason Ned took the direwolves is because I think it's Theon that says, like, you should keep them, like it's the sigil of your house.
It is.
The direwolf is the sigil of House Stark. So all of them got wolves, and season 1. Ned has to kill one of them.
Immediately, Summer is killed, I believe is the name of...
No, I think it's Lady.
It is Lady.
And Summer, which is Arya's direwolf, she has it run off.
That one's probably one of the only ones that survives.
Yeah, I think it's Ghost, too.
Ghost
is Jon Snow's. He goes to the wall with him. His wolf goes to the wall. He's a puppy at the time. But pretty much, Peter Baelish betrays Ned. Big surprise there. And... he's kept in prison, and Sansa is kept by Joffrey's side kind of as captive now because her father is in prison, and Arya, I think for some time, is training with the swordmaster because her father, arranged sword fighting lessons for her, which is
Arya's cool. She doesn't want to be what girls are typically doing back then. She kind of wants to... They're trained to be a wife, and that's it.
Yeah.
She wants to... She's always been better at Bran than stuff. Like in the beginning, we see Bran, her other brother, and her are shooting arrows, and I believe she's way better than he is.
Yeah.
So she's wanting to be like a knight kind of thing, She's trying to do that stuff, and that was was frowned upon in the day.
Yeah.
So, but Ned is letting her do this stuff in, I guess, secrecy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like private lessons that he arranges. But leading up to the finale, they take Ned to an executions block in front of a lot of people in King's Landing, and I think Arya's in the crowd. Sansa's like up there. Sitting next to Joffrey as they're sentencing Ned to death.
And she has pleaded to Joffrey not to kill her father, and he had said, I'll spare him if he says what he has said is treason and that he won't do it. So he pretty much is saying...
Admit to it now.
Yeah, the paper that he has from Robert Baratheon, which it says, like, no, I have the right to the throne until you become of age and all this stuff. He's saying... he'll spare Ned's life if Ned admits that is not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so Joffrey says that, and Ned actually, I think he does actually say.
Yeah, this is the first time he goes against his word.
Yeah.
Is he's like, you know what? Like, even though, and it's hard to watch because it's like, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And if Robert was still alive, obviously, he'd smack the shit out of that kid.
Exactly.
But Ned actually says, like, yeah, it's all bullshit. Like, he's, at this point, he's giving up the higher truth to spare his family.
Just so he can survive and be with his family.
Yeah. And Joffrey, he's like, nah, like, let's just kill him
yeah,
anyway.
he says, nah, like, it don't matter, but I'm still killing you.
And then that's the moment where my fucking jaw drops because, like you said, we've been following this dude, probably the most
it's
interesting
literally
and
as
honorable
if you were
man.
to follow a main character that you're like, this show is revolving around this guy.
It's like Walter White dying in like season 1 of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and it would be like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? I thought
exactly.
It was yeah, and then it just follows Jesse Pinkman. But Ned Stark dies, and it's crazy. They just fucking behead him, and they show the whole shot. You see like the sword swinging down. When I was watching it, man, I was like, dude, someone's got to get up there and stop him. Like I thought
you were like, okay, who's gonna stop?
Yeah, I was like, who's gonna get up there? And that's where it exceeds my expectations because I expect, you know, the everyday run of the mill fantasy story to save the hero, but he dies, and at no fault to him, but to the people around him.
It's from that point on, I think, is when I really was like, okay, this show's good.
That's when the turn of events starts spiraling out of control. So I think
from that point on, the show really goes into like war.
Yeah, it's war.
Because his eldest son, Robb Stark, is like, oh, okay, like fuck that. They killed my dad. Like fuck these guys.
Yeah, like we're marching north.
We're marching south.
South.
Yeah, from the north, and the north will attack them.
And they're going to attack the Lannisters.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what a lot of season 2 and 3 have to deal with. So
yeah.
we'll talk about that, but like in another episode. But man, season 1, Nick, what are your overall thoughts of it?
Season 1 is good, man. I think season 1 honestly is like my best. Like, it's such a good entry level season for the show, man. And it's probably one of my top 3. I'll say maybe. I don't want to rank them right now.
Yeah, not now. It's kind of hard to.
Season 1 is definitely up there.
It is,
and it's really good to like. They did a really good job of hooking in any new viewers to the show. You know, not just people that read the books and watched the show, but you know, me, I'd never seen Game of Thrones, and that season, like, fuck, man,
it's really good.
It's really good, and it sets the standard for like what the rest of the show is going to be. You know, high production value, really good story, and you know, I don't even think there's anything crazy like action that goes on this season. There's
a couple fight scenes, but it's really mostly story driven.
Yeah, it is really mostly story driven, mostly character driven too.
Yeah,
which is it plays to its strengths.
It really does.
And honestly, I'll just rate it right now. I think season 1 is a 10 out of 10.
I agree with you. I think this is a perfect season.
It's a perfect season.
I think a lot of this show is perfect in a way. It really falls apart near the end.
Yes.
And we'll get to those episodes, but for now, like, we're praising the show because it's in season 1. It's really good. It does everything right. I think it's as much as you don't want to see Ned die, it's more compelling. If you would have survived somehow, it's predictable.
Yeah, I think
this show is anything but predictable, and I think that's why it's such a great
even at
show.
the ending.
Yeah,
it's
man.
not even predictable.
Oh man.
But we're gonna bring that up so much.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, but 10 out of 10, I think, from both of us for season 1.
Yeah, I think season 1 definitely it is anything but predictable, and it kind of sets up like that this show is not afraid to kill off characters.
It's really not.
And that almost nobody has plot armor. There are some people that survive some random shit, and I'm just like, okay.
I'm interested for you to tell me what characters that is and what season.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to get to that. But yeah, for now,
season 1 of Game of Thrones.
If you haven't watched it, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it.
Even knowing stuff that happens, this show is still worth watching. I think.
There were some spoilers I knew from the show, and even when I still watched it, it was just all the more satisfying to see it on screen. So that's the review for season 1.
That wraps up season 1 of Game of Thrones recap, review, whatever. And we're going to be doing, I guess, one for each.
Yep.
We're leading up to the final season. I can't wait to shit on this. I really cannot wait.
That's why I just want to talk about them and get it over.
So thank you guys for listening. Check out Game of Thrones. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cosmic Kickback, Instagram at Cosmic Kickback, Reddit Cosmic Kickback. There's a Discord in the description below if you want to join and interact with us.
Yes.
I think that's all of our stuff. If you're listening, make sure to follow, leave a review, and we will shout you out
Yep.
Yeah, we'll thank you guys for all the support as always, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Winter is coming, everybody.